Hello and welcome to Apex Math. Today we are going to look at how to add fractions with unlike denominators. If you have not already looked at our lesson on doing least common multiples, I would suggest you do so, since we will need to find a least or lowest common denominator in order to add our fractions. The least common denominator is just a lowest common multiple of the two denominators that we will be adding. So some prerequisites that I recommend that students have before adding fractions with unlike denominators are that they can add fractions with like denominators, that they understand the concept of fractions, so that they understand the concept, and that they can reduce fractions to simplest form, and that they can find the LCM. So if you haven't accomplished these things ahead of time, I would go ahead and do that before trying to add fractions with the unlike denominators. All right, so let's say we want to add 1/3 plus 2/9. I usually recommend that adding fractions, that you add them vertically. Organizing math can make a big difference in helping a student understand the mathematics. So we are going to first look at our two denominators, and we are going to find the LCD/LCM of our two denominators. So we have 3 and 9. Now, one thing that I suggest you do is you always see, does one denominator divide evenly into the other one? So in this case, 3 goes in evenly into 9. So anytime that happens, then your common denominator is just going to be the bigger of the two numbers. So that's an easy first check. So since 3 divides evenly into 9, we can just use 9 as our common denominator. So then I recommend setting things up where we have two fractions that we're going to change. Now this guy, he actually doesn't need to be changed, so we can just put x's here, and he's going to stay 2/9 because he doesn't need to change since his denominator is already the denominator we're looking for. But this guy, he has a 3, and we need to change his denominator to be a 9. So I tell students to think of this sort of as a changing booth here. And I tell them, what is it that 3 needs? Remember, this is a multiplication sign here. So what is it that 3 needs to multiply by in order to get to 9? So the student usually can say, well, 3 times 3 is equal to 9. Well, if this fraction goes into the changing booth to change his clothes to become this new guy in his new outfit, his pants need to match his shirt. So whatever outfit he picked, outfit number 3 down here, he needs to choose that same outfit for the top. So the numerator is going to be the same value here. So it's going to be 3/3. And then you can remind them conceptually that really we're not changing the value of this fraction, because anytime we multiply anything times 1, we're getting the same number back. And multiplying times 3/3 is just another way of multiplying times 1. So since I did 3 times 3 and I got 9, now I'm going to do 1 times 3 and I get 3. Now I have two fractions here that have the same denominator, and I can go ahead and add them. So when you add two fractions that have the same denominator, we add the numerators and carry along that same denominator. So we have 3 plus 2 is 5, and so we get 5/9 as our final answer. So let's try another one. This time let's find one where we have to find and change both denominators. So let's say we have 2 let's say tenths plus 5/12. So in this case, if we look, 10 does not go evenly into 12. So I'm going to have to find an LCD or an LCM. And again, if you go watch my other video, we're going to go through the steps, but we're going to go through them more quickly here. I say to take those two values that you want to find the LCD or LCM of and write them down. Then think of any two numbers that divide, or any number that divides into both of these two numbers here. And they're both even, so a good one to start with if you have two even numbers is 2. So 2 goes into both of these numbers. So I'm going to divide them both by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. Then I look at the end result here, 5 and 6, and I ask myself, is there anything else that goes into both of those two numbers? And there's nothing else that goes into both 5 and 6. So that is in reduced form, and that's why making sure a student understands what the reduced form of a fraction is before they begin is a good idea. So once we get to that reduced form, we simply take the first number and we diagonally multiply it times the last number. And it can be either the 12 times the 5 or the 10 times the 6. It doesn't matter. So 10 times 6 is 60, so that is going to be our LCM. So we're going to change each of these guys to a fraction now with a 60 denominator. And I like to leave my work up over here, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So we're going to make our two changing booths for our fractions to go into. I'll make this one a different color here. All right. And so the 10 now is going to go into the changing booths and needs to turn into a 60. So what do I need to multiply 10 by to turn into a 60? Well, your answer is actually right here in this LCM work that you did, which is why it's really nice to leave that here. That diagonal number that the 10 matched up with is the number that goes into the changing box. So 10 matched up with 6, so 6 is the number that's going to go in the top and bottom here. 10 times 6 is 60, and then 2 times 6 gives us 12. And now for the other number, if we look diagonally here, this is a 12, and he matched up with the 5. So that's the number that needs to go in this changing booth here. So 12 times 5 gives me 60, and 5 times 5 gives me 25. Now I'm ready to add my two fractions. So I add my numerators. 5 plus 2 is 7. 1 plus 2 is 3. So I get 37 over 60 as my final answer. All right, we're going to go ahead and do one more. Let's do 7/21 over 4/18. Alright, so we're going to go over and do our LCM. We're going to take our two denominators, 21 and 18, and I'm going to think what goes into both of these numbers. And what comes to mind is 3. So I'm going to divide them both by 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. Now I ask, can I reduce this further? Does anything else go into both 7 and 6? And the answer is no. So I'm going to multiply 21 times 6 to get my lowest common denominator, or 18 times 7. 21 times 6, I get 612. So my lowest common denominator is going to be 126. So I'm going to set up my changing booth here, and I'm going to have a 126, and set up my changing booth here, and have a 126. And again, what numbers need to go in these boxes? I can just look over here. In the one for 21, it matches up diagonally with the 6. So the 6 is what's going to go in here. 6 times 7 gives me 42. And then for the 18, this way you don't even have to do that division out and figure out 18 times what gives me 126. It's all ready done for you. It's going to be 7, and 7 times 4 is 28. Now I'm ready to add. 8 plus 2 is 10, so 0, carry the 1. 4, 5, 6, 7, so I get 70 over 126. Now both of these guys here are even, so I might want to go ahead and try to reduce this down. If I divide this by 2, I get 35. And if I divide this by 2, I get 63. So I get 35 over 63 as my final answer. So that is the easiest way and the most organized way to add fractions with unlike denominators. So thank you for visiting us at Apex Math. We hope this has been helpful. Please, we appreciate it when you like our videos. And if you would like us to make any topics that you would find helpful in the future, send them to us in the comments section, and visit us in future videos.